Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. We're with Congressman Frank Pallone, 6th Congressional District in New Jersey. We talked about infrastructure and the Gateway Tunnel project. You've proposed your own infrastructure plan.
Well, actually, the idea of mine is to dovetail with the president. In other words, President Trump during the campaign and still talks about a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. This would be over and above, what we have annually with the budget. Okay. But he never specified, exactly what would be included. We assume a lot of it's going to be transportation, right? But our committee doesn't deal with transportation. We deal with electricity infrastructure, like the electricity grid. We deal with water infrastructure. We deal with hospital construction, brownfields and Superfund, and broadband. So what we did is we basically carved out and said, okay, we'd like to spend 170 million of this trillion, all right, on those areas to improve and augment infrastructure.
And your concern was, in all the times he's talked about the infrastructure bill, he hasn't talked about those things. He's talked about roads and bridges and airports.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't get the impression that he wouldn't be willing to include those things. But the problem that we've seen so far is that every indication is that he doesn't want the federal government to really pay for this, right? In other words, he's talking about, he put out a couple of feelers a couple of weeks ago that said, we're still going to do the $1 trillion infrastructure plan, but I want the state and local governments to pay for most of it, and it would all be private or mostly private. So in other words, if you had a road, it would have a toll, and the road would be built privately, and some private company would own the road and collect the tolls, or the state and local government would pay for it. And none of that's going to work. I mean, the towns and the states are looking to the federal government to provide the funding.
Right.
They're not interested in, if they had to provide it themselves, it wouldn't even be a federal initiative. And the whole idea of leveraging everything so that roads would be private or mass transit would be private, I mean, that kind of begs the question, because then in the long run, the government's paying more and the consumer's paying more. So we'll see. So far, it doesn't sound too promising.
You mentioned the internet when you were talking about that. Let's talk about net neutrality, because you've been in the forefront of the fight for net neutrality. I know there's some fervent advocates for net neutrality. I don't think most people understand, when you talk about net neutrality, what exactly you're fighting for. And I'll give an attempt, but please correct me. It is just that the broadband providers shouldn't be controlling the speed and content of what we receive.
Pretty much, that's the case. That's the fear, which is right now, the law says, and this was promulgated by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and upheld by the courts, to put in this standard that says that, as you say, that if you want to access and use the internet, the providers can't speed up or determine what content they're going to use at a given time. And if that changes, now when Trump came in, now the majority of the FCC are Republicans, and they have taken a stance saying that they want to get rid of net neutrality. They want to change the rules, and they promulgated a change in the rule that would essentially repeal net neutrality.
Explain for a second, I want to back up for a second.
Sure.
Explain for somebody that's not a tech head, how that's going to affect them.
Well, in other words, I mean, the worst example for me, maybe I shouldn't use tech head, but I'll use a politician, but I'll go to tech head if you want, is that, what if they decide that they don't want to, what if the providers decide they don't want to run certain things because it's too liberal or it's too conservative? They could decide not to, that you can't basically put something on the internet that's politically controversial.
It sounds like a freedom issue.
Exactly, it's a total freedom issue.
It's fascinating when you see the signs lined up on net neutrality.
Yeah.
On one side, it's Verizon and it's Comcast and it's cable. On the other side, it's Google and it's Netflix and all the things that people enjoy.
But I think you talk about the tech person. I think I would be even more concerned for the little guy. Like the small business that wants to sell something on the internet, right, or use the internet as a way of generating business, right?
And they could slow down his speed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the danger, because we know that so many small businesses now, where people looking for jobs, use the internet. I think the little guy has the greatest potential to lose out.
And what you need, from what I've read, is you need people to care about this.
Oh, absolutely. If people can. They can actually write. The FCC is taking comments until the end of August. So as of a week ago, I think there were 5 million people who had commented, almost all against repeal of net neutrality.
There. And also on July 12th is Stand Up for Net Neutrality Day, where across the country people are supposed to rally.
Right.
I'm sure
And there's a huge opposition to this, but so hopefully if there's enough opposition, they'll change their mind, although they don't seem to be willing to.
Sir, thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Larry.
I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Congressman Frank Pallone, 6th Congressional District in New Jersey. Jersey Matters continues right after this.